Thank you for watching Wolcott Governmental TV. I'm John Curley, outside here at Tyrrell Middle School, where we're about to interview longtime Tyrrell principal Arline Tansley, who will be departing the Wolcott school system after educating our students for more than 3 decades. Thank you, Ms. Tansley, for coming on and joining us today. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So tell us a little bit about yourself for the folks who don't know who you are, and give us a little brief timeline of sort of the roles you've been in and held as an educator here in the school system leading up to you becoming principal here at Tyrrell.
Okay. I've lived in Wolcott since I was 5 years old. Started in the Wolcott school system and graduated from Frisbee. Actually went to school at where the police station is now as well. Went to Wolcott High School and went on to college and came back here as a teacher, actually a substitute teacher. Got my certifications and came back to Alcott as a social studies teacher in 8th grade. Worked in 8th grade as a social studies teacher for several years until 13 years ago. I then became assistant principal at Wolcott High School for 2 years and then became principal of Tyrrell Middle School after that. So it's been I've been in Wolcott almost my entire life. I have served about 31 years as an educator. Prior to being an educator, I was an environmental analyst for the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And I used to write all of their environmental and social impact statements. And the last one I wrote was for our I-691 in Meriden, actually. So, and then decided that I had some children, started in the school system and decided I really loved teaching. And that's when I got certified to teach and became a teacher.
So you held many hats.
Yes.
Which role have you found to be most rewarding out of all the sort of positions that you've held throughout your career?
Most rewarding or most enjoyable? I loved teaching, John. I really loved teaching. I think you become so totally involved with children when you teach. I became so personally involved with almost every child, with every child that came through my classroom. You know, when you see a child every day for 182, 184 days a year, they become yours. They're your children at that point. And I love teaching and I love the personal contact. That's not to say that I don't like being an administrator. I do love being an administrator as well. I think when you talk about making major differences, you're doing it on a more global scale when you're an administrator. However, sometimes you're not as personally involved with the children. But I just enjoy being with children. I enjoy the schools.
What has been the differences in responsibilities? Because I know you've served in other administrative positions prior to becoming principal here at Tyrrell. What are the differences in those positions?
Well, as a teacher, you're in one role as administratively for students and their parents. I was also a team leader, and that is another role where you're taking on instead of teaching 100 students a day, you're working with 5 teachers and 120 students, and it's a little bit more global. As an administrator, one of my worst fears is meeting students out and not remembering their name, because I've seen thousands of students over the years, and I know them all personally. Sometimes the name doesn't come, and as I get older, that becomes more difficult even. But it's just students need to know how important they are, and that's the reason why educators are here is for students.
Is there anything in your position here as principal that you kind of don't enjoy as much?
The things that I don't enjoy. Certainly paperwork has become monumental. There's an awful lot that has to do with teacher evaluation. We have a wonderful school system here in Wolcott, and as an administrator, when you're involved in your building and you're involved with every aspect of it, you're very, very much in tune with your teachers, and you know what they're doing on a daily basis. But having to spend hours upon hours upon hours writing up evaluations for a teacher that is spectacular, teacher of the year, wonderful role model for students, that almost seems to be, that is taxing, I must say. So that part of it is probably not as enjoyable as others.
Now, it seems like with all these changes in the federal and state education standards and curricula that you have to be part of administering as an administrator here at Tyrrell. Do you find that has been challenging to kind of lead that for school?
I don't. I think change is good. Over the more than 30 years that I've been in education, we've gone through so many changes in state and federal requirements. Many of them beneficial, some of them not so beneficial. And I think over time, the state and federal government begin to realize which ones are beneficial and which ones aren't, and those get left behind and new ones come in. I think change is good for everyone. I think it's good for teachers to change the areas that they're teaching in, the grade levels, the subjects. I think that curriculum needs to change to meet the times. Right now, everything is moving toward technology. If a child gets out of a school district without a proper introduction to technology right now, the district, I think, is really deficient in preparing them for the future. The future is technology, and not that there aren't certain things that they need to learn outside of that technological world, but they need to. They need to understand technology, they need to be able to use it, they need to be able to manipulate it, and we need to move forward in that direction.
How have your students here adjusted to some of these newer sort of testing standards and things of that nature? Have they adjusted well to these changes?
I think our students have adjusted much more so than the teachers have adjusted.
Right.
Sometimes the teachers get very frustrated. Every child in this building walks around with a device all day long. We don't make many copies anymore of anything because everything they're doing is on Google Classroom. Some students handle that much better than others. Some students just are on the sites that they've been assigned to be on. They never go to a site that they're not supposed to be on. But then we have some students that instead of doing what they have to do on that site, they're on sites they shouldn't be on, and the teachers get a little bit frustrated with that. But it's pretty much controlled in this building. The students know that they're going to lose their device if they don't adhere to the rules. So I think it's an adjustment for everyone. It's an adjustment in the way students are learning. They're able to be much more creative using technology. It's not always just a right and a wrong answer, but how it's presented. So technology, the wave of the future.
And it actually brings up a good question that comes to my mind. Have we seen a significant decrease in the amount of physical textbooks in the classroom with this new technology?
We are definitely seeing that. We're kind of on the cutting edge here in Wolcott. Some districts are perhaps more advanced than we are, but every child now has a math textbook in Tyrrell Middle School that is online. They have a workbook that's a paper copy workbook that they use, but everything that they need can be accessed online. Several of their other subject textbooks are online. They can access them at home at any time. We are moving away. And there's a financial situation with that as well, because the textbook companies, although they're offering textbooks online, they have renewal dates. We have a social studies textbook that's been being used for 17 years, and history doesn't change very much, as you know. But once we go to an online history book, we're going to have to update that every so many years. So it's a different way to approach learning.
Do you feel that the challenges, because I'm sure every administrator in an academic institution faces challenges on a daily basis, do you feel that the majority of them are sort of beyond your control in a lot of ways?
Um, I don't get that very frustrated with changes. I like change. I think any job, any occupation you're ever going to come in contact with, you're going to face change. And those changes, you have to roll with changes as time goes on. I get excited about change. I like change. So, no, I wouldn't say frustrated. Only if it's a change that's not benefiting children. That frustrates me the most.
Let's talk a little bit about the transition process. What do you feel the future entails for Tyrrell with a long-time principal leaving and one who has, Mr. Norcross has served many years here at Tyrrell in various capacities, but it's still going to be a change in leadership. So what do you feel the future holds for Tyrrell?
I don't think you're going to see much change. Mr. Norcross was here at Tyrrell as an assistant principal while I was principal. So he's very familiar with the style that I think, the culture that we've established. And I think he's very much in favor of that culture. Mr. Caetano, who is the assistant principal now, has worked with me for a few years, and he certainly knows what our culture has evolved into as well. I don't foresee a lot of change at Tyrrell Middle School as a result of me leaving. I feel very confident. Mr. Norcross is a very, very qualified administrator. He has very, very strong academic background. He's truly an academic leader. So I don't think you're going to see a heck of a lot of change.
Do you feel, though, that there's sort of a difference in the responsibilities of an elementary school principal versus that of a middle school principal? Is there a different environment that you're sort of leading?
Well, certainly there's a bit of a change that you would have to adjust to. When you're in an elementary environment, the way you approach children is a little bit different than the way you would approach a middle school child. But for the most part, children are children, and I don't see that there is a huge difference. He will have a lot more support here than he had at the elementary school. And we have guidance counselors, we have media center people, we have support staff in the middle school that an elementary school principal doesn't have. So I think he probably, and he's going to have an assistant principal, which is also very helpful. So I can't see where it's going to be much different. Sometimes people think that middle school kids are so much different than elementary school. They're not. They're children. They're still children. And children have to be treated as a child.
There's only a few years age difference, right?
That's right.
What do you have? Is there such a thing as a daily routine for the principal position here at Tyrrell, or does it sort of vary from day to day?
There's certainly somewhat of a routine. However, it varies depending on the day. My day starts with making sure that every classroom is covered with substitutes every day. And sometimes that's a very lengthy process because I have to wait to get the substitute list and figure out which teachers are absent and who needs coverage during which periods. The PPT process is very grueling for educators right now. There are days when I have 6 hours of PPTs in one day. So that PPT process takes a lot of organization and a lot of preparation. So it depends on the day. My assistant principal and myself, we make sure that we supervise all lunch waves at Tyrrell Middle School, so that our students have access to us every day, all through 3 lunch waves. And I think that's very important. I think that's very important in most schools. And you might say, well, you're not teaching when you're in the lunchroom. Well, but students need to have access to you. Students need to be able to come up and speak to you. They need to see you as being visible every day. And you also need to be able to set standards in a lunchroom where you want all students to feel safe and comfortable. So that's another part of the routine.
You sort of maintain that connection because as principal, I'm sure it's a lot easier to sort of indirectly stay disconnected from them with all that's going on as an administrator. So to have that sort of time set out during the day to kind of be with them and interact with them on a daily basis.
It's very important, I think. And when I first started and decided that we were going to be in the lunchroom every day, our discipline was reduced significantly in the afternoons. Because when students are in the lunchroom, it's a lot of free time, it's a lot of social time, and we were finding that when we looked at statistics, several discipline reports were after lunch. So by us being in the lunchroom, it calmed all of that down, and we have very few disciplines in the afternoon now.
Really? Let's talk a little bit about the disciplines. Have we seen sort of an increase or a decrease in the last 5 years, let's say? Or has it sort of stayed the same?
A tremendous decrease.
Really?
A decrease to the point where I've dismantled our in-school suspension room. We've had possibly 5 in-school suspensions in the course of an entire year, and we have a student body of almost 600 students. Yeah. Students they behave very well, they do what they're supposed to do. The teachers have been very empowered to create connections with their own students. So discipline, very, very minor in the middle school right now.
Yeah, that's great to hear. If you look back on your 37 years of being an educator, is there one sort of example that comes to your mind of something that you feel was the most successful thing that you've ever done for our students here in Wolcott? Is there one thing that maybe comes to mind?
One significant thing?
Yeah. Sure, there's many, but
there are many. But the one thing that sticks in my mind the most is when I was teaching social studies. We were learning about the Middle East, and I was teaching about Islam in the whole Middle Eastern conflict and Osama bin Laden. And at 9:30 at night on the evening of 9/11, I had a student call me, and she said, Mrs. Tansley, I was in school today at the New Haven Magnet School that she had transferred to. And she said, I was the only student in the entire building that knew what just happened with 9/11. And I actually taught the entire student body at the New Haven Magnet School about Osama bin Laden and the conflict in the Middle East. And she said, and then she went on to ask me questions about, some other things with the Middle East. And that just stuck in my mind. And I said, here's a child that I didn't think was paying attention most of the time. And she absorbed every bit of that discussion. And it made a difference in her life. So that was a very significant moment in my career. Certainly I've met many students over the years that have, come back and said, how much they enjoyed middle school, or they enjoyed being in my class when I was a teacher, and that they enjoyed Tyrrell because of its, maybe because of its structure. They always felt safe coming to school. They always felt that it was an environment where people cared. So I think those are probably the most significant things.
I mean, as a former student, I can certainly say that was the case. I always felt safe every day, and it was a good environment. And this is, I think, one of the cleanest school buildings I've ever seen.
I like
and
clean.
I've been in many, so that's been
I like clean.
In the principal role, would you say the majority, out of your entire day, is the majority of your position responsibilities geared more towards the student success and curriculum area, or is it geared more towards overseeing maintenance of the building, the other operational areas, budgetary matters?
I think it's split. It's truly split. I would love to say it's 99% academic. I can't say that. If I have a day where an irate parent shows up at 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm arriving at school, that might go on for 3 or 4 hours that day. But I think the focus is academics in this building, and the teachers are very, very, it's a fabulous staff. They know what the children need. They're very willing to make changes to their curriculum to meet the students' needs. What do I spend the most time? It depends on the time of year. It depends on the day. That's all I could say.
Yeah, I would imagine it certainly varies.
Oh, it certainly varies, yes.
All right, so one piece of advice for Mr. Norcross, what would it be coming in as principal?
That's a tough one, John. That's a tough one. I would say take things slow, see what's happening, get to know his staff again, and just create a rapport with both staff and students, so that everything will work together. Everyone will work together.
All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the student achievements that we've had this year alone. I know this is certainly a school that has had many academic achievements within recent years, especially. Tell us some of the things that have been going on this school year, since it's almost coming to a close pretty soon in the next couple of months.
As you know, we started, as you might know or might not know, we changed over to the Common Core a little bit later than some other districts did, and we have been showing consistent improvement in our scores. It was quite a change from the CMT format that we had formerly. When we were using the CMT format, we had basically mastered that format, and we were really, the school was, we were competing with, what should I say, the Gold Coast schools in terms of our scores. The SBAC has certainly been, we've changed a bit, but our scores are consistently increasing. This year we also we've instituted what's called iReady, and students take iReady tests in reading and math 3 times a year. And those scores are supposed to pretty much mirror the SBAC results, because we don't get the SBAC results until almost September sometimes. So we're seeing significant increases. Our students are doing extremely well. We have some great reading programs here at Tyrrell. In fact, for the past 8 years, I believe it is, we've received the Governor's Reading Challenge Award, so we've been invited to Hartford, and I think we're the only middle school in the state that's happened with. Our students read. We do a 1 book, 1 read all summer, plus the students read their own books, and we get 99% participation in that. So the reading has really helped. We have 2 reading specialists here, and our students, sometimes they're coming in and they're improving their reading levels by 3 grade levels in 1 year. So we've made significant progress there. In math, we just hired a math interventionist this year, so students are getting some extra assistance in math. And for next year, we're hopeful that we'll have 2 part-time math interventionists, so we're hoping that those math scores will even soar a little bit higher. We've had some great successes over the years with being recognized as a school of excellence. So.
Are there any things in particular, like on ongoing education programs, et cetera, that the teachers here have to attend in order to implement the new sort of testing standards and curriculum standards?
Well, they're continuously going to different programs and based on their disciplines. And the district supports those. So if a teacher would like to go to a conference on reading strategies, the district supports those. Every teacher in the building has just gone through a differentiated instruction program this year because we've eliminated the level 3 classes, which were more remedial classes. Now every child is in an honors class or a college prep class. So teachers within those classes sometimes have to differentiate instruction. So they've all gone through a differentiated instruction program for that. We've had a great deal of instruction in this iReady testing program that we're using. So it's continuous and it's ongoing.
Yeah, and I would say it's probably ever changing, to say the least. So.
Continuously. I think education is continuously changing. It never stops.
Never stops, and especially with this sort of massive increase in technology implementation too.
Absolutely.
Does that get costly for the district, or is that more coming from more grant programs?
It's costly for the district, but it's a switch. In other words, a transfer of funding from one thing that if you bought a whole textbook series, even in one discipline for one grade level, you would probably spending $30,000 or $40,000, where now you're buying a license for that textbook. So it depends. We have many parents in the middle school who have purchased Chromebooks for children. So many children come into school every day carrying their own Chromebook, which has helped immensely. And they really like that because their Chromebook is all set up with their tabs just for what they're using every day. But for those children that aren't bringing their own in, we have Chromebooks for them here. So yes, we have to maintain those, but the district makes sure that they get contracts where it covers maintenance and it covers all, to change those out every few years. The licenses on those are limited, so they make sure that we're always up to date.
And sort of, it's almost like a must at this point in education these days.
You have to do that.
This technology era that we're in, I guess you could say. So I could definitely see why the costs are needed for that. So last but not least, do you have any special plans for after retirement? Yes.
You know what? From everything that I've seen, it says don't make too many plans until after you retire. I haven't made an immense number of plans. If I need to fill in for principal somewhere here or there, I'll certainly do that. My husband and I plan on doing a little bit of traveling. Not that we're great travelers, but we do have some must-sees that we will certainly go off and see parts of the world. I just want to take a little bit of time for me. So, no definite concrete plans.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's really, it's going to be big shoes to fill.
I don't know how big, but Mr. Norcross will do a great job.
Yes, I'm sure he will. But it certainly will be a big loss for the district nonetheless. And thank you for your years of service. And I know you've served decades in our education system. So you'll be sorely missed. But we wish you the best of luck with your retirement. And,
thank you very much.
Thanks for coming and speaking to us today.
That.
Mrs. Tansley will be departing the Wolcott School System effective June 30th of 2017. On behalf of all of us here at Wolcott Governmental TV, I want to thank you for tuning in, and we hope you've learned some more information about the departure of Mrs. Tansley and what the transition process will entail. For Mike, Bruce, and myself, have a great rest of the day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.